My grandfather came to America in 1908. He, coming from the mountains of Lebanon, wanted to go back to the mountains. And he had $3 in his pocket. And he went to the train station and bought a ticket to wherever it would take him in the mountains. And it took him to Copper Hill, Tennessee. So this whole community of Lebanese Syrian Christians in little old Copper Hill, Tennessee, got there because my grandfather, went up there having purchased a ticket to the mountains. And the priest would come from Cleveland, Tennessee, 40 miles away, and spend the night in one of the Lebanese people's houses Saturday night and say Mass in their living room the next morning. And that's how I grew up going to church that way. There was a whole community of my relatives and similar people here in Atlanta. The whole Lebanese Syria community lived in Grant Park. They all went to the Immaculate Conception Church down near the state capitol. In fact, my parents were married in that church. And finally, this group realized that they needed a church of their own. So in the 50s, they started talking amongst themselves about starting a church. And this building that we're in, which was the Asa Candler of Coca-Cola, his mansion, my group of people started looking for a place. They found this building, and they got together and they purchased this building. It was about 1946. Father Haddad had been here probably a year where they did that. And so they started trying to decide how they were going to remodel it or turn this place into a church. I was at Georgia Tech at the time, and I was on the periphery of it. The people that were really doing it were a bunch of Maloofs and Jableys and Haddads. Those were the people who were really into this thing in a big, big way. The discussion about turning this thing into a Melkite church and what the Melkite buildings looked like, everybody was thinking about these people all grew up in the Latin Rite church. For us to absolutely convert this thing into a Melkite church just like that was not going to happen. We put the pews in, there were kneelers because everybody was used to kneeling down. There was a communion rail across the church. So you had a Latin Rite interior in a Melkite church. And converting it and getting the folks who had grown up going to the Latin Rite church into the mood of being a Melkite just took some time to do. And so it was a challenge, to say the least. Quite frankly, we ran some people off. When we took the kneelers out of this church, we lost 3 parishioners. They just could not believe that we were removing the kneelers. And the idea of enclosing the altar with a screen was just more than some people could take. So I designed the screen in such a way that it could be enclosed later. Little by little, we closed it up. And those people who couldn't take it literally left. I mean, they just went back to their old ways of Latin Rite church. Most of them went back to Immaculate Conception down in downtown Atlanta because they were all living around there. So that was the early days and how it evolved. And I was on the periphery of an awful lot of that because I'm an architect. I'm a Maloof. And the wonderful thing about it is I was not only on the periphery, but I got heavily involved. You know, once the thing was moving forward. Father Haddad was constantly after me, asking questions and so forth. So that was the early start of this place. I think it turned out wonderfully myself.